Paddle, paddle and microphone team leads, can you please let me know when we're up, and we'll get started. Okay, I think we're ready. Okay, good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Eisenhower Auditorium. Hope you had a good lunch. Got to talk about what the CG said. It's a good contextual, you contextualized what we're going to talk about for the next few days as far as emotional intelligence. So, but now we have an opportunity to ask questions and learn from experienced computer grade leaders on here with the stage with me. Here in a minute, I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and describe their leadership positions held and their experience in the Army. So today what we're going to do is we're going to keep this at the direct level leadership level and below. Can anybody describe to me what direct level leadership is at echelon? Go ahead. You. Yeah. Yeah. You know what direct level leadership is?
Sir, I can guess perhaps it's direct in regards to soldiers. So if you're at a company level, then it's just company and below. So you have everyday interactions with soldiers and platoons.
Yeah, exactly
Okay.
right. Yep. Company and below. So last night with Senator Ernst, you had an opportunity to engage a United States Senator. And so most of the questions asked were kind of strategic level questions. North Korea, near peer adversaries, all good questions. But today, again, company level and below. So at some point in your near future, most of you, if not all of you, will serve in a direct level leadership position after Bullock. And so today, even though our USMA cadets and our ROTC cadets, you've gotten four, some of you four, some of you a little bit less, but plenty of reps through our program on what that means. But this is another opportunity for you to ask questions of experienced leaders. So with that, well, before I get there, so after the panel members introduce themselves, we'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. So you want to ask a question, raise your hand. We have our team members on either side of the aisle here that have microphones. Raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. Just like you did last night, stand up, state your name, your school, and ask your question. So with that, we'll start with Captain Ginn and work our way to the left.
Can everyone hear me? Cool. All right, so I'm an armor officer commissioned out of James Madison University. Anyone from JMU here? What's up? Thanks. Went to Bullock over in Fort Knox. Went to 3rd ACR, was a platoon leader, executive officer. When I finished a deployment in Iraq, I went to career course. I went back to Fort Hood to the BFSB, which no longer exists. I was an S4 there. I served as a planner, and then I took command of a motorized reconnaissance troop. Upon completion of that, I got my MBA at Baylor, which the Army let me do. That was great. And then finished that up and came here, and I am the ops officer for SAMS, the School of Advanced Military Studies. So that's me. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Master Sergeant Michelle. I've been in the Army 24 years. I am currently the Senior Military Sergeant Instructor for Mo West. Came in the Army in 1993 as a lonely private. Did basic training at Fort Benning. Left there, went to Germany. Deployed in Germany. Came back to the same unit I left. Long story short, positions, I've been a team leader, squad leader, held every rank from E1 to E4 as a corporal as well. Two unique things about me is as soon as I became a sergeant first class, I had a few months to deploy, took my troops to war. Same thing happened to me when I was a first sergeant. Turned first, got first sergeant, got frocked, got my troops ready, and deployed to Afghanistan. I am formerly of Wentworth, military. It's no more, so that's why I was moved to More West. I have one of my old cadets there from Wentworth, from representing. So if you see cadets in there acting crazy, please let me know. I'll take care of them for you. And that is all.
I'm cadet. I went way back there. I am Captain Piper Yetman. I went to Northern Arizona University, where the Lumberjacks, go Jacks, get it? Anyway, commissioned at ROTC, military police. Did my first 4.5 years in the military in Germany. That was awesome. Deployed from there to Afghanistan. Came back, took command at Fort Leonard Wood. At the 92nd MP Battalion, came here, took command of one of the USDB companies, the 526th, there's one of the companies who do the United States Disciplinary Barracks, and now I am here at CAC as the Deputy G35. I am dual military, married to Major Nick Yetman. He is a student here at CGSC, and we have 2 kids, so we are total dual military life, and it's super exciting. So if you have any questions about that, I can help you out there too. And I just recently transferred from military police to ORSA, so don't ask me questions about that. Haven't gone through the school for that yet. Thanks.
I'm Master Sergeant Justin Hardy. I'm from the University of Missouri, also known as Mizzou. Army for about 18 and a half years. Deployed 3 times. My first tour was in 2005, turned around and went back in 2006, and then Afghanistan. So 2 Iraq deployments, 1 Afghanistan deployment. I've held 2 company or troops since I'm a cavalry scout. So first sergeant positions, and then of course platoon sergeant and things like that. So we're really looking forward. I think the whole panel up here is kind of looking forward to, like, we're learning on, want you to have your questions, all right? Really platoon sergeant, LT type of questions. So that's it.
Good afternoon.
Whoa, yours is sensitive.
All right. Here we go. All right, I'm Captain Matthew Goins. I commissioned out of the University of North Alabama as MP. After my OBC, I went to Hawaii, where I spent 3 years. I spent time as a PL in 728th MP Battalion under the 552nd MP Company before being selected for the direct support MP Platoon under Stryker Brigade. Deployed with them to Operation New Dawn in 2010. Hey, can we turn this mic down just a hair?
Sir, you need to move up a little bit.
He's getting a lot of feedback.
All right, after that I went to back to the MP Battalion, did some S4 time, learned and grew a lot from it before going to career course. After career course, went to Fort Drum, where I was on division staff for 2 years before deploying with staff in support of RC East in 2014, and then while I was downrange, took the operations company for the division. And then redeployed before using up 22 months worth of grad. So I've done that program, and here I am today with my wife and 4 kids, and we live just off post. It's a wonderful place to be. Thanks.
We'll see if this works better. Master Sergeant Moore, University of Kansas. I've been in the Army for about 18 and a half years now. I joined in '99. I've served in the 10 and a half years in the 75th Ranger Regiment. When I left there, I went to 3rd Brigade, which is now the new 1st Brigade, 2nd ID, Stryker Brigade. Out of Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was a platoon sergeant. And then I was an RI for 13 months, and then I PCS to Fort Riley, where I took a light infantry company, and then moved over to 2nd Brigade, which is their mechanized company, and took a rifle company in a cab. I have 15 combat deployments totaling almost 6 years. That's it.
Thank you, Master Sergeant Moore. Thank you, the entire panel. So with that, we're opening up for questions. Now, you can ask a panel member, you can ask the entire panel, it's up to you, but please address it as such. But go ahead, please, if you have a question. Yep, you got a question. Okay, number 4, wait, we'll go with number 3. Go ahead.
This question is for Master Sergeant Moore, Cadet Carlson, West Point. I'd like to know how you balance personal life with such a high op tempo.
A very understanding wife.
Can you expand on that?
So for you starting out, you guys are always going to feel the need to feed the machine. But you also have to remember you got to take some downtime for yourselves, otherwise you'll burn yourself out. So this is kind of my downtime, but if I didn't like what I was doing, I would not still be here. So
Okay, thank you, Master Sergeant Moore. Number 4, go ahead. Don't everybody jump at once.
I'll go. So for me, what I did was I tried to have as many platoon days as possible, since for us it's at the platoon leader level. For the enlisted, it's going to be at the team leader, squad leader, platoon sergeant level type thing. So you're going to see that your team leaders, your squad leaders are going to have a lot more interaction with your soldiers than you will. It's just how it goes. But for me, I tried to have as many platoon bonding days as possible. Every Friday for us, we try to do sports PT type thing, have some competitiveness in there. We challenge other platoons, to make us like the best platoon. And at the company level, try to challenge other companies to, bond that way as well. So it's really just trying to get down, know your soldiers. And then I'd say within the first month for sure, you just need to go through the barracks. Even as a lieutenant, you don't need to do that constantly. The barracks are really an NCO lane type thing, but at the same time, if you get there, you kind of learn what their interests are just based on what their rooms look like, then you'll start to get to know them a little more.
Was this question for the whole panel or just for one person? The whole panel. Okay, so first of all, Michelle, so my thing was family, okay, from PFC team leader all the way till first sergeant. I get to know something about that soldier and their family. Families are very important to soldiers. If you're not taking care of the families, then there's a problem. If you show interest in the family, I got to the part where I knew people's first names, their wives' first names, their kids, and their anniversaries. So one thing I did use was whenever there was the anniversaries, I gave them that day off. So for me, it was family, getting to know them through their family.
Okay, thank you. Next question. So make sure the microphone is on before you ask it. So go ahead, number 2. Let's make sure the microphone's on. Go ahead.
Cadet John Bruff from Western Kentucky University. My question is for the whole panel, and I was curious, as a fresh new PL, the first week that I get to the unit, what are some of the things that you guys are looking for, and then what are some of the things that I need to be doing, like talking to my chain of command, getting to know the surrounding areas? Do I need to be talking to anybody specifically, any counselings, stuff like that?
The first thing I do before I go to any unit, probably for the first 30 days, is I don't do much. I listen, I don't talk. You got to figure out the culture before you can do anything. So you got to figure out, hey, what's your platoon sergeant like? What are your soldiers like? Does your platoon have issues? Some do, some don't. Some may be really great at PT, some may have discipline issues. So get to know your platoon sergeant, have that conversation with them. You guys are a team. So you need to figure out from him what the issues are. I would also get to know your first sergeant, your commander very well. A lot of PLs are very scared or for some reason don't want to go talk to their first sergeant. I didn't at first because, that guy had just loads of experience and I was just a new person. But that first sergeant will help you out a lot. And not that your platoon sergeant won't either, but it's a different perspective that they can give you. Your commander, they're always going to talk to you anyway, but utilize those NCOs and then make a plan from there. So that's how I would do it.
I would say you don't have to automatically go in thinking that you know everything, right? Because some people judge a book by their cover, right? So you're going to want to be like super intense, like, I want to go do this. Don't do that. In my opinion, right? Because the commander and the first sergeant, even the battalion commander, they all know that you're a brand new lieutenant. You just got done with Boldick. they want to fill you out, all right? They're going to check you out. They're going to see what you can do. They're going to look at your knowledge. The battalion commander's probably going to give you some type of stupid task to do, and he's going to see if you can do it, things like that. But the biggest thing is when you get there, do what the captain said and observe, look what's going on, look at the relationships that are already there, built, and then how do you perfectly fit yourself into that relationship without changing the dynamic of the platoon, the squad, the company, whatever it is, and don't try to completely force yourself in there because now you're just, I'm the new officer, here, look at me. That way, everybody's not going to look at you with a different perspective. Just fit in, develop yourself, and listen.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, go ahead.
Cadet Johnson, Dickinson College. This is a question for Master Sergeant Michelle, as well as any of the officers or enlisted who have found themselves in similar situations. In a situation in which we as future PLs take command of a unit that's about to deploy, what do you prioritize or what are your major priorities before heading overseas?
I had that thing written for the senator. Was that you?
No, Master Sergeant.
Okay, cool. All right. Did not ask me a question if you're that guy. So you say prior to deployment. Again, I'm going to relate back to starting with family. Okay, so the soldier wants to, the soldier has to deploy, all right? And what's on his mind? His family. Okay, so those, if you get that situated, then you have a man or a woman ready to fight for you. That's why I say first, make sure the family is straight. If it's a FRG, make sure the FRG knows that family. If you need special needs, make sure those special needs are met while you're deployed. Excuse me, while that soldier's deployed. All right, now you talk about pre-deployment. Pre-deployment comes with what? Training. Okay, so given the opportunity to train, do not, I want to use words that's politically correct here. If there's time to train, then you should train. That's what I'm trying to say. Do not use that time to do something different, okay? The training that you do prior to leading up to the deployment might kick in while you're deployed. I'm saying, so again, take training extremely seriously. There's a lot of people in the Army that says we go into training and they frown at it. Shouldn't frown at it. I smile at it. Okay, I get excited about it because it's something that's going to help me keep my troops alive. So I go family and training. I'll let somebody else answer the rest.
I think that question, that was just for Sergeant Michelle, is that correct? Okay. Anybody else?
I would say rely off the experience of your NCOs and your company commander. Actually, ask the pointed questions about what you should be doing. They're going to let you know. They're not going to let you fall on your face. There's a lot of boxes that have to be checked, and you have to do some good quality training, a lot of administrative things that you have to make sure happens before you go out the door. But if you rely on your NCOs and you trust them, and they're feeding you everything that you need that's good, then you can't go wrong.
Okay, thank you. Number 3?
Stephen Hiles, University of Virginia. This question for the whole panel. What was the lesson in leadership that you wish you had known at the platoon leadership level that you were not fully able to understand or grasp until you saw the larger picture at the company level?
So for me, you hear a lot, listen to your NCOs, listen to your NCOs, listen to your NCOs. And I tried my best to listen to my NCOs, but I was a pretty cocky platoon leader, which is not what you want to go into it. You want to be confident, but you do not want to be cocky. And so I struggled with that in the sense that I ripped with with the old platoon leader, came in and the training calendar was blank for the 8 weeks out plus kind of thing. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I get to fill this in. I'm going to do cordon and searches. I'm going to do recons. I'm going to, do so-and-so who a training. But I never talked to my NCOs. I never figured out what they wanted to train on, which was a very big lesson learned for me because they know the units. They know the platoon better than anybody. You need to get their feedback. You need to sit down and talk with them and discuss with them, hey, what do you think we as a platoon need training on type thing, rather than, hey, this is what I think we should train on because I want to train on that. It's not about you. It's about the platoon and the training and what your company's medal is and what their intent and what your commander's intent is. So if you don't know what your commander's focus is and what his intent is, you need to learn it, and you need to get your NCO's input. It's not just listen to your NCOs in the sense of like, they got PT kind of thing, and they'll do the PT calendar and that, and you'll just kind of, go along with the PT calendar. It's not just about that. It's about what they want to train on and what they think their soldiers need training on type thing too. So that was a huge lesson learned for me in the sense of actually actively listening to what my NCOs had to say.
I agree with everything she said. I think the point you were kind of getting at was maybe what did I wish I knew as a PL? Something, and I was kind of the same way she was. I didn't really realize that things happen for a reason. All right, so you're a new PL or you've been a platoon leader for a while, and your commander will tell you at a company training meeting, hey, this is what you're going to do. And it may sound silly, but that was only because I was thinking about me and my platoon. I wasn't thinking about how does this fit into the big picture. And I could give you a million examples. It doesn't matter. I would always say that if something doesn't make sense to you, or you feel like maybe it's stupid, in your own mind, give it the commander and kind of ask what his intent is and kind of figure out how does this fit in the bigger picture. Because once you get that, then it starts to make sense. And it took me a while to figure that out. I'd always think that, I don't know, we were wasting time. The second half of my time, when I had that discussion and would figure it out, you realize that it makes sense. So I would just say that, keep an open mind. I don't feel like you're the one that's always getting, pushed down. There's a reason for it. So just figure out the reason. If they're not communicating it, just make sure they do.
And also, it's always going to be learning. You're always learning your leadership. It's constant, right? I don't think any of us on here probably automatically knew what to do as a platoon sergeant or a PL. It's constant, right? Even as a first sergeant, you think like, oh yeah, I'm the senior sergeant first class, I'm the senior platoon sergeant, I'm good to go with the first sergeant gig. Yeah, all right. You get there, no, not really, all right? So it's about learning the whole dynamic of each individual team, squad, platoon, and everything like that to effectively lead them into combat or to whatever you're trying to get them to do. Even if it's just online training, you gotta figure that out. And you're building a Rolodex even now of how you're gonna lead those people later on in your careers. So ROTCs, there's not much stuff, right? But anytime you fail or you succeed, it goes into your little Rolodex of your brain, and then you're gonna be able to pull something out that either matches it, and you might pull something out that fails, but that's okay, because now you just updated it, and now it's back in your Rolodex. So your leadership Rolodex in your head is continual. So I don't think anybody's perfect. It's just how you deal with it, how you relate it to others, and then goes into how do you influence them to get stuff done.
Yeah, I'll end it with just what the captain said here. If you do not understand something, do the common sense thing. Ask a question. You understand the commander's intent? Ask the question. Before you go out there and do some craziness in your head and then do something you had no intention of doing, just ask him the simple question. Am I meeting the intent? Show him what you got. And I guarantee he'll take his time, and if it's right, he'll give you the thumbs up. If not, then he shall take his time, a good commander, and train you the right way or explain it to you a little further.
I'll probably add on to that as well. Like, one specific example I can provide is like in the MP company I was my first platoon gig, platoon leader gig. Like every afternoon, whether we wanted to or not, the commander would have a closeout with all the PLs all at the same time, all at once. And he'd give out a lot of intent, a lot of what's going on, a lot of the direction he wanted us to push the platoons in. And there was a few times when I was, not quite clear on it, and a couple times where I kind of guessed at it, but I was a little off. Eventually he set me back on course, But at that point, I had the opportunity to ask, and it just simply did not. And I've seen with a few of my peers, it can go wrong, more so than it ever did for myself. So again, don't be afraid to ask.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with number 2 and then number 1 down here. So number 2.
Hello, I'm Cadet Nathan Durant from North Carolina State University. My question is to the whole panel. It's concerning the relationship dynamic between the NCO, or the PL, and the platoon sergeant, and the company commander and the first sergeant. And it is, as a PL or as an officer, to understand when to stay in your lane as an officer and not either stay in your lane and not be too proactive as to step on your NCO's toes, as to not do their job or annoy them in that way, or when are the instances that you do need to either help out your NCO more, or if that question makes sense. So that's my question. So.
First thing, there's not an officer lane and there's not an NCO lane, right? That's the biggest thing right there. So both of you have to work together, right? The PO might have strengths, platoon sergeant's gonna have weakness, or both of you are gonna be super strong, maybe both extroverts and you're going at it, right? So you have to weigh each other. You have to communicate well with each other. I'm not saying that every platoon sergeant and PL leader relationship is good, because there is a lot of bad ones as well. But it's how you interact with each other, with the Joes underneath you. Same thing at that company level too, right? They could be they could not even talk to each other, and they don't like each other at all. But they have to find that balance on how to lead that team, anything like that.
Yeah. There's a mechanism already built into that, and it's your counseling. So you're supposed to counsel your platoon sergeant and your first sergeant. That's supposed to be an open interface where you discuss with them duties and expectations, stuff that, trust me, they've got years of experience on you. They already know what they're supposed to do. But it's also an opportunity for them to make you more aware of where you're maybe misunderstanding a little bit. It is an opportunity for conversation, an opportunity to discuss those things. So do counseling, legitimate counseling. Anybody else?
I just say figure out the role dynamics between you and your counterpart, whether it's the company commander and the first sergeant or the PL and the platoon sergeant. One of you is going to be stronger one way. We like to call it affectionately the mommy-daddy relationship. So one of them's normally going to be the grumpy Gus, and the other one can be the kinder, gentler go-to guy. So just kind of figure out your internal dynamics, and you'll have some things that set you off, and he'll have things that set him off or whatever. So you just kind of have to figure each other out. But give it some time before you start jumping into your pet peeves that you have developed.
Okay, number 1.
At McKenzie, Norfolk State University. My question is for the entire panel, and it's what leadership or what basic leadership traits would you all recommend that we hone in our last year or 2 years of our respective institutions?
The number one thing is just dedication, hard work. I know it sounds cheesy and cliche, but you got to put in the time every day, day in, day out, right? I mean, you're the leader of that platoon, so you're going to be there early and you're going to leave late, and you got to make sure every little thing's done before you go home. If you're not doing that, then your NCOs and your soldiers aren't doing that. It's okay that you don't know stuff, and we've been saying that over and over again. I mean, I didn't know shit. Excuse me. I did not know anything when I started. I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. But what did I do? I just stayed there. I talked to everyone I could, and I suck out as much information as I could, and I try to make myself better. So I don't know if you can necessarily hone it. I just think you either have it or you don't. You're going to care about your organization or you're not. I've seen plenty of platoon leaders who don't care. They're just there, and in about a year, they've decided they're going to get out of the Army. And those guys, don't worry about them because they're not going to help you out. But if you're the type of person that cares about what you're doing, then I think the rest will come.
Okay, I'll carry that. Like you said, be a sponge. Suck everything you can get in out of good leadership. I mean, people say listen to your NCOs. Listen to good NCOs. because we have good and bad on both sides. Habits, good habits. So you're constantly being watched by your soldiers. They'll know your good habits, they'll know your bad habits. If you're the guy that says, do it, and then you don't do it yourself, then there's a problem. There's a problem, okay? So I'd say good habits.
I don't know if I'm going to final it out, but mine are the 3 C's. You guys heard those? Character, competency, commitment. Those are, to me, those are the big 3 C's that the Army has. So character, how humble are you? Are you compassionate? Do you work well as a team type thing? Those are things that, yeah, they should just be instilled in you, like Captain Ginn said, like, you should have those. It's the Army values. So if you don't have the character, you're not going to do well in the military at all. Not just the Army, not just anywhere as a leader. In the military, you're not going to do well if you don't have the proper character. You need to be committed. You're going to have late nights. When I was an XO, I just had a blow-up air mattress in my office, and I slept on it probably once a week, just because that was the commitment that I thought it took. I've learned since then there's a little more balance to it, but that's what I thought it took at the time. And then for your competency, you're going to learn it. It's just not something that you're going to have. Don't show up to your unit super cocky. It's not going to do you any good. But if you learn and you're committed to your craft, it's going to come with time. And if you ask those questions, then it's going to come, and you're going to be more and more confident as you go on.
Okay, thank you.
One more, sir.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
On the biggest thing, when you get back to your campuses and you have all your peers and you have your lower MS1s, 2s, 3s, and what you need to really do is ask them, where do you see me improving? What do I need to improve about myself, right? Because I know everybody went to camp, especially ROTC guys. I know the West Point, y'all do a little different. But you get those peer evals back, right? And sometimes you see flaws in there that your peers see that you don't see. So when you're looking about, what attribute or you know what I'm talking about, the ALRM model, which one do I have to follow? What do I need? Look at your peers, ask them, and tell them to be straight with you. So you can be like, okay, maybe I don't have to be this way. I can change and know yourself, self-develop yourself.
Okay, we'll go with number 3, then number 2.
Cadet Desjardins, University of South Florida. With the ever-changing ROTC program, this is more directed towards the NCOs. How do you feel new incoming officers have been changing throughout the years?
Trust us, we're not going to let you fail as a whole. We'll let you fail a little bit as an individual, because that's where you're going to learn from. So when your platoon sergeant lets you slip and fall, all right, he's probably going to steer you back to the company commander, and you're going to be like, sir, what did I do wrong? And then he's going to develop you. So don't be afraid to fail. Push your boundaries, your comfort zone every day. If you're not, you're failing yourself.
I think we're heading in the right direction. I mean, there's good, there's bad. I like to do a lot of, for me, 1 to E7, I'd straight up crush people. But now I do, let me talk to you, unless you just drive me crazy. So yeah, then I crush you. But I want to be honest and politically right. We're heading in the right direction. I mean, we're heading in the right direction. There's individuals, okay? In every organization, there's individuals that's going to make you scratch your head. Okay, overall, from 2 colleges, I came from Wentworth and went over to Mo West. I think we're heading in the right direction. You're coming in at a time you don't know what's going to happen, okay? And that takes a lot of oomph inside of you. So just showing up in the door to begin with, I got you. There's certain cadets, I don't want to name any names, that should not be in the military whatsoever, not even in the cadet land. But you know what? They'll self-identify, and they'll be relieved. A lot of people are maybe living on some clouds. When they get to their first unit, I just pray that they meet that first crazy captain. He'll bring them down to earth. I'm saying, so overall, we're heading in the right direction. pretty good group of kids I have. I have also my battalion commander in there as well. Ask her, she'll tell you. I'm out.
Okay, we'll go with 2, then 1. Go ahead.
Cadet Hurtado Mendoza, Puerto Rico. This is a question for all the panel. If you are sent to a deployment again, how would you ensure and prepare your soldiers and yourself readiness in terms of emotional intelligence prior to the deployment and during the deployment?
Can you repeat that in terms of what intentions?
In terms soldiers and yourself's readiness in terms of emotional intelligence prior to the deployment and during the deployment.
Okay.
Well, Master Sergeant Michelle hit on it to begin with. You know, family's the first thing. You know, if you go single, that's one way. But a lot of your soldiers, a lot of your NCOs have families, so you cannot deploy for a year if your home life's not in check. You know, another one is we did some in our unit. We're kind of big on resiliency. So, you know, I think it's the 5 pillars of resiliency. Don't read too much into it, but, you know, spirituality is one. Physical fitness, that was the one we focused on the most. I'm a firm believer that if you're physically fit, you're mentally fit. So there's a whole gamut of things you can do beforehand to make sure that you're good to go. So I'd say be in the best shape you can. You know, if religion is your thing, you know, make sure you're good on that before you go. Give your soldiers time to take care of that before they go, whatever it may be. God, what else? There's one more. I forgot. And then overall training, I would say, that goes in with the confidence that she was talking about. You know, if your soldiers feel confident, then they'll be confident and they won't be as nervous. So there's not one specific thing you can do. I think you just need to be on top of all of them, and you'll be okay.
Talking about how does it relate into with emotional intelligence, I think you're going to see through the next couple of days that you're going to get all of this stuff, that most of you are already emotionally intelligent. And then what you're going to have to see is if you buy it and you really enjoy it, you're going to have to figure out, how do I give that to my soldiers? But you're also going to see that most of the soldiers you're going to have are emotional intelligent. Okay, so it's not like, oh, I'm just a rock, right? They have some type of emotional intelligence. Maybe it's just not at the certain level where it needs to be. So when you start preparing for deployment, yeah, you have all the pre-tasks and you have all this. It's really about the relationship management, and you're going to hear all these big words later on, right? But how do you fit that in to the jigsaw puzzle of life and combat and being in the Army and families and spiritual and all this other stuff, right? So they're going to be ready. Every soldier's ready. They know it, but they just don't want to go, right? It's stepping out of that comfort zone. So it's all going to tie back into itself, and hopefully over the next couple of days, you're going to realize that, and you're going to come to an aha moment of, oh, I figured this out, and I think you'll be able to shoot for the moon after that.
Your biggest concern with that one, it's not so much how do you get them ready, it's how do you keep them at that level when you're 5,000 miles from home. You know, you have no real knowing, you know, what's going on back here. So how do you keep that mindset where he stays sharp, he stays alive? That's what you have to focus on. It's not so much that he's going to be, you know, not ready to go with you. It's how do you keep him in the game while he's there.
Okay, thank you. I think we had a question 1. Go ahead.
Cadet Haley Cobb, Oklahoma State University. My question is primarily for Captain Yetman, but is for the whole panel as well. We've talked a lot today about the demands of direct level leadership, especially in the beginning, to include sleeping in your office. And my question is, how do you balance that with parenthood, marriage, and other family and personal demands?
I was telling my tour group this earlier. In the military, there's no such thing as balance. You can try to say that there's a balance, but in reality, there's really not. Your family will sacrifice. So my husband and I, we've been married for coming up on 4 years next week, and we've been separated for a year and a half of that time. I have been pregnant while he's gone. I've been in command while he's gone. I've had our 8-month-old going all the way up to, 17 months, or no longer than that, 18 months, while he's gone too. So it's just, it's hard to, I don't want to say balance, but your family will sacrifice, but at the same time, if you go into it knowing that, and it's a realization, and there's expectation management, do not answer the phone during dinner time. Just don't do it. Don't answer texts, kind of thing. Like, that's a big thing with us. If it's important, they will call. And if they call multiple times, then you pick it up, type thing. Otherwise, you don't need to answer the phone. You can sit and you can stay with your family. Sometimes you need to come home, have dinner with your family, and then go back to work or something like that, okay? But as far as my family goes, it really helps that I'm dual military in the sense that my husband knows exactly what I'm going through. And he has been there. He's been through it. He's 2-year groups ahead of me. So he took command before I did. So I've had 3 commands now, 1 in Afghanistan, 1 at Leonard Wood, and 1 here. So he knows what it takes. And so when I say, hey, I can't answer right now, or I got to go, deal with a soldier issue, it's Saturday night and I get a call for a DUI, he understands all of that. Where I think it's a little bit more difficult, and that's why there's such a high divorce rate within the military. I'll tell you, too, that I'm a first-time marriage no-go. That's how I like to refer to it as. He's a first-time marriage no-go because in all honesty, we married civilians, and it didn't work out for us. They didn't understand the commitment that it took. And if you want to strive and go far, it's hard, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. It does. But our 2 little ones, I'm done with 2, by the way. I'm not having any more. I think they're going to grow up in a sense that, we'll make it when we can. My little 2-year-old goes to gymnastics, and I make sure that I'm going to take her to gymnastics every Monday at 1800. Don't bug me today at 1800. Going to gymnastics. But it's finding what's important to you and making sure that you're there for that. But you're not going to be able to take them to every baseball game. You're not going to be able to be there. My husband's very likely to deploy here soon. And he's going to miss a lot of things. It's just how it's going to be. And then I'm going to deploy at some point, too. It's just how it goes. So just making sure that you set your family up, knowing that, talking them through. Technology is amazing now with FaceTime, or Skype or whatever you use. So just making sure that you have that time and communicating well. Just communicate.
Anybody else want to take that question? No. Great job. Good answer. We'll go with number 4. We have a number 4, then number 3.
And there we go. All right, awesome. Cadet Ivy, West Point. So this question to your Master Sergeant Hardy and then the whole panel after. So earlier you mentioned there's no officer or NCO lane in terms of like cooperation. But if there's a case where cooperation is bad and then boundaries are overstepped, is there a need for discussion like integrity of position, and when is that a good time to happen?
That conversation needs to happen away from soldiers, right? And if you're not, and if you can't have a conversation with that peer, then you have to involve the next higher person. So if you're the PL and the platoon sergeant, you got to bring it up to the first sergeant or the company commander, and then so forth and so forth. It happens at battalion level as well, a lot. So you get a lot of CSMs that can't really work. The 2 people just don't mesh. So there's going to be moments, right? But you don't want to be emotionally hijacked, which you're going to learn about in a couple of days. And then how do you deal with that? Like I said, in a conversation, one-on-one, and it might take a little bit of loud talking or aggressive talking to get your point across, because we've probably all been in that situation at one point, right? Because one of you's right, one of you's wrong, or you have to meet at the middle, and you both feel very strong about it, but you're trying to get your point across, and one's just not listening to it. And mostly, the NCO is the hard-nosed one, usually, because we're kind of set in our ways of how things get done. So it's the officer trying to make his or her point to the NCO, and that's kind of where it gets a little heated. But as long as you're talking and you're doing that, and you're not showing that to your subordinates, I think you'll be all right, because it's gonna happen, for real. It's gonna happen. Like, you probably never, like, if you have at a school where your PMS and maybe your SMI don't see eye to eye, they kind of work together very well, but there's probably other stuff going off in the background that you're not even aware of. So it kind of happens.
Okay, thank you. 3, then 2.
Matthew Wheeler, University of Maryland. My question is for the captains. What tips would you have for developing and implementing your command vision and philosophy? And for the master sergeants, what advice would you give to your officers to ensure that the philosophy or vision is communicated well enough to the enlisted soldier?
Say, just like so many other things, you want to nest your vision and your goals and everything with your higher element. So you want to do that, but what you really want to do is to make sure it's actually executable and manageable. Can it be done? Are they setting the level here, and you're saying, oh, what the heck, let's just go one up? Is that a bridge too far? Are you going to be able to make it, or are you setting yourself and your soldiers up for failure? I would say don't do that. Do what you're able to do. Listen to your people that you work with and for, and those that work for you, and see what your limitations are.
I'd say keep it simple, personally. I mean, maybe y'all have seen examples of some commanders or platoon leaders that have this giant infographic on what their platoon's going to be. No one's going to read it. They're just not. And you probably spent weeks putting it together, thinking it was the coolest thing in the world, and it's not. I kept it to 3 things. I kept it physical fitness, accountability of men and equipment, and standards and discipline. And I said, if you can do those 3 things, we're doing okay. And everyone remembered it, you know. So I would say keep it simple. Maybe those aren't your 3 things. Maybe you have a couple that are important to you and your platoon sergeant. I will say that your platoon sergeant needs to be on board with it before you just start throwing it out. Have that discussion, because you too run that platoon. Yes, it's you, but let's be honest, a platoon can run without a platoon leader. It cannot run without a platoon sergeant. So make sure you guys are together, and then make it simple, and your soldiers will understand it if you communicate it consistently.
I would just say that this is the time where you and your platoon sergeant, your counterpart, first sergeant, whatever, this is the let's close the door, let's have a grown-up discussion on the vision and how you see him supporting you, and because if you don't have the buy-in from your NCO, then it will fail. So you may not see eye to eye across the broad spectrum, but if you could get to a 90 to a 95% solution on the vision, then you've won. So just remember, he's not going to see eye to eye on everything, and you're not going to see everything, but if you can meet in the middle and then sell the vision through your mutual respect of each other towards the success of your vision, you will succeed.
He's going to follow, right? If he's a good NCO, he should follow what you'd want. You want to compromise at the 90, 95, but if the platoon sergeant doesn't start following, there's something wrong, right? It's either that dude doesn't want to be there no more, it's time for him to get out of the Army, he's not adaptable to change, but he should follow, ultimately. That's in my opinion, but if he's not following, there's something wrong.
Okay, thank you. Go number 2, then 1.
Testing. Okay.
My name's Cadet Kikeski, University of Hawaii. Relax, I don't have a dissertation-sized question this time, but
Okay,
my
that's
question.
enough. No.
This is for the entire panel. My question is if you've ever had to deal with toxic or incompetent leadership during your Army career, and if so, how did you deal with it?
I'll give you no names. As a first sergeant, we're going to talk about incompetent. So we're getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan, and there was like reports prior that one of the PLs, politically correct, one of the PLs was just, well, pretty much didn't know his job. Okay, and once that happens, the soldiers are talking about you, and you know how the soldier network goes. You have the CNN network, you know how that goes. So it happens in Alpha Company, and by the time the day is over, it's in Echo Company that everybody knows that this certain PL is just not on it. My personal thing was I went out there to evaluate this PL, and I saw exactly what they were talking about. It was a field problem, and at that point, so we walked, now we crawling. We're not time to run yet, so we shooting blanks. And in the midst of the battle, this PL is flustered, cannot make a decision, pretty much like goes in a corner and sulks, okay, while his platoon is engaged in a battle, okay? So how did he handle that? Both me and my captain known of it, but I saw it firsthand, went back, spoke to the captain, and again, platoon sergeant was being complaining about it. The NCO's been complaining about it. Long story short, this man got relieved. And that's something that could happen to you if you're incompetent. You get relieved. In the infantry, there's no place for incompetent leaders. Just say that. I don't think anywhere else, but in the infantry, definitely not. You first line defense, okay? Bullets, you shoot at you, they shoot at you, direct fire. And he was relieved of his position, and we got somebody else. And just a quick tidbit for you. Once you're relieved of your position, you go into their shop, you're making coffee and doing slides or whatever else they want you to do. So that's how we handle it.
Anybody else?
I think it depends on what level of toxic leadership you start talking about. So toxic leadership at the squad leader, NCO, and below, you should be able to figure that out as a PL. Very, very fast. If you're engaged with your platoon, and you should be able to squash that and move that NCO or whatever, who's ever being the toxic leader at that point, out of your formation. Then you got the toxic level at the battalion level, and I've seen that as well. You're not going to be able to really, tell that dude no, right? Because he's a lieutenant colonel. But what you have to do is figure out how to protect your subordinates from that toxic leader. Because I can already guarantee you that if he's toxic enough, the next higher leader sees that, and he's probably on his way out. But how do you shield your soldiers from not being that? That is what you're going to have to figure out in doing that. Not saying that every unit has a toxic leader in there, okay? And it might be the most charismatic guy being the most toxic, or vice versa. So you have to know the dynamics and understanding the relationships in there, and to really pick out that, right? Everybody says, oh, everybody's a toxic leader because you made your Joe do push-ups. No, not really, right? There's a lot of other steps that happen when you get that toxic leader ideal in there.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with 1, then 4.
Rob, Princeton, this one's for the panel. So this morning we talked about how NCOs are largely extroverted and officers are largely introverted, whether or not that's true. I was just curious, since we have a panel of NCOs and officers here together, if you could share what other emotional traits or characteristics you found to be true of each other and how you use that knowledge to create a more cohesive team.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with characterizing a specific all officers are introverted, all NCOs are extroverted type thing, because I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't have to agree with that. You guys don't have to agree with it, or you can. But as long as whoever your counterpart is, everyone has a counterpart. Everyone, whether it's even just you work for you have yourself and your first line supervisor type thing. You have to understand who you're working with. So as a platoon leader, platoon sergeant, you have to understand who they are and what makes them tick, what their strengths and weaknesses are type thing. And you have to know your own too. And you have to be willing to balance that. If you guys have the same strengths and weaknesses, you're not going to be the most successful team in the world. That's not to say that if you do that, you're not going to succeed. You just have to realize that someone needs to step up in certain times and the other one needs to step up in the other times type thing. So if you know that a strength of yours is PT, but you're not good at counseling, you need to get good at counseling kind of thing. You need to work on your weaknesses and you need to understand each other in that sense. So I think it's about communication. I think it's a matter of talking to yourselves and figuring out how you can cohabitate in your mommy-daddy relationship. And same with company commander and first sergeant, same with you're on staff and you're a battle officer and you have a battle NCO type thing. It's the same kind of mentality of you have your counterpart in some way and you need to learn how they tick kind of thing. And if I know that most officers are very competitive people, that if you want to be the best officer you can be and you want to have the best team out there, you need to learn their strengths and weaknesses, because if you're both just hard chargers, good luck, because that's not always the way to go. And if you're both going to stay back, that doesn't mean that you need a hard charger and somebody who's going to stay back. That means that you need to balance it, because sometimes you're going to have to stay back and you're going to have to let the NCO do it, or vice versa. So that's what I think.
So platoon sergeant PL relationship, not much to add, but she just hit it on the head. I still talk to my first PL today. He's a major in Fort Bragg right now. I mean, we ate chow together, and the one word she used, I'm gonna use again, is competition. So between us, we had competition going. Between the platoons, there was competition. Between the companies, there was competition. So again, she used balance. Yeah, one's good at this, one's not at this. I mean, it's just the way it is. I still talk to him today. We had a great relationship. Okay, we ate chow together. We pretty much did whatever it was together. I mean, you got to get to know that platoon sergeant. Okay, invite him over to your house. Have dinner with him. Get to know his family. You're the team. And I'm telling you, something's wrong between y'all. You might not be that professional that the platoon does not know it. It's just like a child. Okay, you got two parents and there's a child and the parents are arguing. The kid knows. I don't care what you try. The kid knows that. It's just like mommy, daddy, platoon sergeant, PL. The soldiers will know.
Going on with your introvert and extrovert thing, I had no idea what that was until I was in cadet command, right? So 16 years in the Army, I don't know what that is, right? So a lot of people out there are not going to know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. I'm really high-strung or I'm chill, right, ultimately. So when you use these big words, when you go out there in the force, man, you're going to lose a lot of people, man. I'm just being real, okay? So, oh, Sergeant, are you an introvert? I don't know, right? So think about that, right? So you're going to have to read it. You know what it is. They're not going to know what it is. So you're going to have to figure it out, right? You're going to have to figure out a whole bunch of shit, excuse me, right? But they're not going to know these big words. They're not going to know emotional intelligence. They're not going to know all of this stuff. I'm just a private. Private, I know how to shoot my weapon and go where you tell me to go, Lieutenant. That's all I know. And I know how to fix your radio that you don't know how to do. So think about that.
Okay, great. We'll go with number 4 and then number 3.
Cadet Romero, University of Pennsylvania. My question's for the whole panel. Can you speak about an instance where you were challenged or even an instance where you failed that you feel that we can all learn from?
Talk about failure on what we learned for this, in my opinion, right? We've probably failed more than we've succeeded. We've just learned how to to deal with that failure. And I don't know if there's like, for me, I don't know if there's one point of discussion for that. Just know we have failed. We're not the perfect human beings. Unless somebody has something super easy. Yeah, so.
I got 18 and a half years of stories, which one's?
Right, so, and it's how we bounce back from those failures to be better. Especially on the NCO side, right? There's 40 years of service between us. So just, there's a lot of failure, man. And as long as you don't, that doesn't bring you down. And we're talking about failure of soldiers' lives, right? That we have to deal with too. So it's how you look at that and how do you prepare yourself and reflect on how to deal with that. So.
Yeah. Oh, sir, let me chime in a little
Yeah,
bit.
go ahead.
So, when you do fail, bad news doesn't get better with time. You got to let somebody know what's up. You got to. Damn, that's super loud. Don't be
you gotta
afraid
lean
to
up.
let others know your weakness. There are people above you and to your left and right that you can lean on. There are people above you that need to know if something's wrong because they're depending on you. Find good ways, healthy ways as coping mechanisms, not alcohol. Can't drink your problems away in the Army. You can try, but it doesn't always work out that great, and we have programs for that. So you're gonna fail. We expect you to. When you get to your units, like we've been saying, don't come in cocky and all crazy hard, thinking you're gonna change the world and the Army's gonna be one smooth, awesome, easy gliding, running machine that you're making it happen. So there's gonna be a lot of things you're gonna be expected to learn, different processes that from one unit to the next are different, and different social aspects that are different from unit to unit. So one culture in one former unit, it's going to be completely different, even between like within a battalion. One company could be completely different. The company's different from the battalion. You're just going to be expected to learn a lot of different things. So be prepared to drink from the water hose.
Okay, we just got 3, right? Okay, we'll go with, what's that? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, 3. Then 2.
Cadet Shrek from University of California, Santa Barbara. I was wondering what were ways you changed the mindset of unmotivated soldiers, and then if you had to, what were things you did differently to get those soldiers ready for a deployment?
I'll try to answer that one. I think I just taught that class to my MS3s, all lessons learned. If you look around, I used the word diversity this morning, so that means we're from different walks of life. You have to take the time to figure out what makes that particular soldier tick. Okay, so what might make me get up in the morning and be pumped up and ready to do whatever it be, may be different for somebody from somewhere else. Okay, the human that I take this one very seriously because once again, not everything that you might get. I get frustrated when I talk about this one. What gets you pumped up might not be the one that get me pumped up. So you got to figure out, hey, if I'm from here, what's important for me? If I'm over here, what's important to me? And then you try to. In the Army, we all try to take a team of anybody's and bring them together, make them one. Okay, I'm not gonna go to the all cliche, we all green or gray, whatever uniform we're in the next day, but you gotta figure out what makes that particular soldier tick and how to motivate him to do what you want him to do, if that answers your question.
Okay, great. Go with number 2, then 1.
Cadet Alex Kim from University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. And my question is, one thing that I hear often is that as a platoon and as a PL, there's always more training than that you have time for, and then you have a bunch of administrative tasks that you got to get done. So I'm wondering, how do you balance all those administrative things you got to do with the training that you have to get done to be, mission successful?
Remember what I said before about coming in early and staying up late? That's it. I mean, seriously, if you got a training event going on, but you also got admin tasks, you know, counselings, whatever it is, then you're going to come in early, get it done, and you're going to stay late till it's done. And it's simple as that. You know, hopefully you have a good calendar, you know, from your commander about 8 weeks out, and you internal, so you can plan that, you know, just like school. I mean, you guys know when you go to classes, you guys know when you're doing homework, and you save yourself some free time when you can. It's no different. It's just planning and hard work. So I think it's simple as that.
For me and my experience, it's all about my commander's intent. If my commander is willing to accept prudent risk and not training in specific areas and wanting to train elsewhere. So if you look at AR 350-1, it's like there's like 420 days that are necessary in order to complete all the training. Well, obviously, there's not 420 days that you're going to get in order to do it all for annual training. So we decided that we don't need to do hand grenade training annually, which sounds sexy and fun, but at the same time, it's not something that's super practical in our fight. So instead, we did some, you know, certain training that was necessary and practical throughout that we needed to do. If we're fighting in Afghanistan, might not need to do anti-drown proofing, but fighting Korea, maybe. If you're going to Hawaii, yeah, you probably want to do that kind of stuff. So it's just certain things that what your commander's intent is and what he's willing to accept, he or she is willing to accept risk on and for.
There's always there's a giant calendar, right, at the division and corps levels of this big old color charts. And it gets dissected into all the way down to company, the platoon, to squad. You have to look at different ways to complete the training objective. So if I have one day and I have to do 10 tasks within a week, how many of those tasks can I do in that one day? Are they congruent with each other? You know, is this, and this? All right, there's 5 of them gone in one day. So now I have to find creative ways to make that training up. Or, as she said, the commander takes that prudent risk on say, hey, maybe we don't have to do this now. But you have to be creative when you start looking at training plans, just like you do now if you're a staff person at your programs. Right? There's creative ways on how to do it and to prepare you for camp. Your cadre use creative ways. Today we're doing, this week we do this, next week we do this, to do all of the tasks that we have to do in one academic year. So you have to be creative as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with number 1, then 4.
Cadet Bush, Fort Valley State University. What is one of the most difficult things that you go through or that you think about daily as a leader? What are one of the most difficult tasks that you have to overcome within yourself to carry yourself throughout the day?
Not everybody at once.
I think it depends on the unit that you're in. So like this unit, I'm kind of motivated to train all of y'all, right? But if I'm in a high op-tempo unit, if I'm a ranger, it probably takes me a little bit more time to find motivation to do that, and depends on my workload and things like that. So I think every day is a whole new day. You can have a very optimistic view of your daily life and things like that. But I really think it comes down to the unit. Is it a really good unit that I really bond well to? I'm probably going to be more motivated to do things. If I'm in a crappy unit, I kind of go down, but I still have to be motivated for my soldiers and things like that. It's a whole spectrum. If I look back and reflect across my career, huge spectrum. Some days is, yeah, let's do it. I'm 100% in. Some days I'm 50%. Depends. Do I look to my subordinates to motivate me? Right? Because in some of my units, I didn't have to be the motivator. They motivated me because the way they were. So, like that stuff.
Go ahead.
You you can find that it's possibly a little difficult to find motivation. But at the far other side, you know, if you're in a really good unit, you really love being there, you feel like you're making a difference, you're competitive, you're giving it your best, you know you're giving it your best, it'd be kind of hard at the end of the day to turn that off, especially when you've got loved ones there that are depending on you as well. You've given the Army a lot of attention, and it's not at the end of the career that you need to start giving them attention. It's way before then. It comes back to that shared understanding and that expectation management that you've placed in that little contract, just like counseling your enlisted personnel or your subordinates, you know. You got to prepare your spouse and your kids for this as well. They need to understand that they're going to get theirs. So that can be a challenge for sure.
My personal motivation, I'm going to go back to my original, which my family. When I walk out the door, it's 5, it's dark 30 in the morning, everybody's sleeping. I know that what I'm doing is going to count to make sure that they stay safe at home. Number 2 for me is June 2008, I lost a soldier in Iraq. Okay, I don't want his death to be in vain. Okay, so I do my best. I wake up and I'm pumped up. There's nobody have to motivate me. I'm self-motivated. I wake up and I'm ready to go. I think sometimes I wake up at 0 dark 30 and do push-ups and go back to bed, something like that. Motivated.
All right, 4 than 1.
Cadet Whitehouse from Eastern Kentucky University, and my question's for the entire board. I'd like to hear from one officer and one NCO. We talked about counseling today and how that's a use for communication and dialogue to open up between the platoon leader and the PSG. And we also talked about when the PL first arrives at that platoon, he really needs to open his eyes and listen before he talks. What sort of time frame are you looking for from a platoon leader where he's just listening and observing before having that initial counseling with his platoon sergeant? And what sort of conversations are going on between the platoon sergeant and the PL before that initial counseling?
Well, it's kind of a two-edged sword. So it kind of depends on when you get there. So you may not have the opportunity to sit back as long as you would like based off of where you're at in the training cycle. So are you in pre-deployment prep, now you're at live fires and doing all this other things where you have to be engaged, where did you get there at the start of the training cycle and you have time to step back, maybe 2-3 weeks, a month at the most. I wouldn't go any longer than a month before you get your pulse on what your unit's doing. But yeah, it depends on when you're there.
So when I had a lot of platoon sergeants, actually. Various reasons, some were temporary, but when I finally got my real one, the one I had for 15 months, the first day, we honestly just talked to each other after work. It wasn't any formal counseling. You know, I know they talk about that a lot, and that comes later. But just sit down and get to know them. You know, BS, talk about each other. It'll come. You know, it really will. It'll come. You know, hopefully they're someone that you can talk to, and I think it'll come. I agree. No more than a month. You know, I give the blanket 30 days, but you know, yeah, within 2 to 3 weeks. That doesn't sound a lot when you're sitting here, but 2 to 3 weeks of sitting there with those people around you every day, that's more enough time to kind of figure out where you want to go next.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, and then number 2.
Cadet Baker from South Dakota State University. Have you ever, this is for the whole panel, have you ever had to enforce a policy you did not agree with, and if so, how did you do it?
Have you ever enforced a policy you didn't agree with? All orders, written or oral?
I mean, I've never had that issue, to be honest, but I'll tell you that I put out an order that my unit hated for, we put out a no drinking order because I had like 3 instances of alcohol-related incidences within 30 days. So I put out a no drinking order, ran that through JAG first, which is, CYA is call your attorney, by the way, in the Army. So I called my attorney, and said, yeah, that's fine. So that was a policy that I put in place that, you know, like, didn't make me exactly the most popular kid on campus type thing, but it was something that was necessary within my unit, and it instilled a lot of discipline, and we ended up better for it. But I don't think I've ever had to put in one that I didn't necessarily agree with.
Because there's a big difference between a policy and maybe some type of order from like a lieutenant or a captain. Is that, like, policy's policies and doctrine is doctrine. What's your question? I'm trying to think of, are you talking about like maybe an order that I didn't like to follow or never? Order. Yeah, I mean, there's been times, right? But you really have to weigh it, right? And I don't think, and in the officer standpoint, like, you're gonna follow orders, and even in the enlisted side. But if I have an order of, Sergeant, don't let anybody sleep for 12 hours because we were on guard, I'm gonna figure out something like, no, that's stupid, right? So people need to sleep. So sometimes when, especially a platoon leader gives an order, maybe they don't rationally think about what happens on the back end, the second and third, fourth order effects of that order. So maybe there's been a couple times where I didn't follow that, possibly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. We're good, though.
More of a suggestion, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, where are we at? Number two, please, and then one.
Is it on? Yeah. I'm Cadet Carter from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas. This is specifically to the NCOs on the panel. What are some effective skill sets or character traits that you see in officers in your experience that have made them successful and your organization more effective?
Ask the questions you don't know the answer to. We'll tell you. If we don't know them, we'll go ask someone that we know knows the answer. That's the easiest way.
Sergeant Hardy, Sergeant Michelle? No? You like it? Ask questions.
Approachable. I don't know, like, I want my lieutenant or whatever for a soldier to be able to come up to him and talk to him. So I don't know, man. Yeah, next question.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with one, and then, one.
Kennerly, University of Nevada. My question is for anyone on the panel that's experienced this. After losing a team member, what advice can you give us to get the unit's mind back on the mission, especially when deployed, and having your mind in the game is very important?
That's the best advice I could give you. Do not sit there. You might have some time to mourn, which I had, but the best thing for your man is to get back in the fight. Okay, I lost a soldier, heart-wrenching. I had to put him on that hero's flight. Heart-wrenching. But if you sit there and let that sink in, and then go back out, you got a problem. I know you've heard of those guys, those rogue platoons, that something happened to them, and then they go back out there. You can't have that mind frame, because you're a leader. In something like this, I could go back out there and have my whole platoon do things that I know that's unethical. And what am I doing? I'm just destroying that whole platoon, their lives. Okay, they have families. But the best thing for you to do is don't dwell it too long, mourn, and get back in the fight, man.
Okay, thank you. We'll take number one, and then one more question after that. Or, number one. Did we just do number one? Sorry, number four.
Cadet Huffman from Tuskegee University. I know that sometimes as humans we might say that we are ready for certain things, but we never truly know until that situation occurs. So just out of curiosity, this is for the entire panel, during deployment, has there been a time at which the mission became hasty and decisions had to be made on the spot? How did you all react to that? What advice besides to be calm could you give to us as far as being in that situation? And for the NCOs also, did you have to ever make the final decision for the PL and for the captains? Did you take many suggestions during that time, use any emotional awareness, or did you just do it?
All right, know your battle drills. You're gonna rehearse these things. You're gonna train on them. Your SOPs that you're gonna have internally at the platoon level and all the way up throughout the echelons. You know, as a captain, you know, if you're on division staff, you're working in a deployed environment and a jock, you're gonna have the battle drills. Know them. Actually, just like as a lieutenant, you should be learning about key control and arms rooms operation and maintenance and stuff. You know, learn your battle drills. Know everybody's gonna have a job, a specific task when something hits the fan. You don't wanna be caught flat-footed when it happens. So knowing will prepare you to not be as surprised. And then, I don't know, if as far as like, what was the second part of your question again? If you don't mind repeating it?
Thank you. My second part, the second part of my questions was, did you take many suggestions? Oh, if you were in that situation during your deployment, did you take many suggestions during that time? Did you use emotional awareness, or did you just do it?
So for me, when I was in Iraq in 2010, we fell in on some pretty crusty vehicles. One specific thing that happened to me was we were in the middle of escorting some USDA folks, agricultural guys, to the local city, and one of our vehicles, the engine caught fire. Like we're posted up in an urban area, and a damn vehicle's on fire. You know, like what could be more panicky than that, other than maybe taking on, you know, direct fire. You know, at that point, you look at the NCO, and you kind of give them the look and the nod, and you know it needs to be done. You're going to recover that vehicle. You're going to put it up because you don't want to wait there for 18 hours for a flatbed to come put out the fire and then load you up and leave. You know it needs to be handled right then and there. So in those regards, some of those things can be handled with simple discussions, you know. Pre-game it while you're doing your combat patrol briefing or whatnot before you head out and break wire, you know. And these are little things that, you know, TTP-wise you build those into your preparation, and hopefully you won't get caught flat-footed.
That stuff just kicks in for me. Been in a few deployments and bullets are flying. I had one instance where the first soldier that I had that got engaged actually directly got shot. He got shot. He said fistler shot, and went to him, but the round had just hit his weapon. It hit his M4, went in and it hit his 9mm, destroyed the magazine of the 9mm. But the first thing to do was to go find that soldier. Okay, it just kicks in. That's where I found him, got my doc. I mean, again, before that happened, I'm training. Remember I told you about training? Training. Again, I'll tell it to you, training. When training comes up, it's not time to sulk. It's not time to find an excuse that you cannot be at training. It's training. Okay, it kicks in. It's like, happens automatically. I'm not no soft guy or nothing like that. It's been deployed. Disclaimer, it just kicks in.
Okay, we got time for one more question. This will be the last question. We'll go with number 3.
Hello. Okay. Cadet New, Alabama A&M. My question is, right now in my battalion, I've encountered MS4s not having the same motivation and dedication that we have to complete the training that we have at hand. And I'm always saying I can't wait to be in the real Army. My question is it going to be any different, or do I need to prepare myself that it's going to be the same type of soldiers I'll be dealing with for the whole panel?
So were you talking just about soldiers or your leadership or both? Or peers? Yeah.
In general?
Both? Yeah, I mean, like was said before, I mean, if it's a subordinate, that's on you and your platoon sergeant to figure it out. Have I ran into leaders that are unmotivated? Yes. And sometimes you got to take on that slack and figure it out yourself. You know, off the bat as a new PL, you're probably not going to know exactly how to do that. Maybe later on down the road, it'll be easier for you to do on staff. I know we're not talking about that level. I don't have a good answer. I mean, it's a sucky situation, right? You know, you take on as much as you can. If you know exactly what you're not getting, try to seek it out yourself through your peers. Maybe through, if you have a leader that is unmotivated, well, maybe you can go find that sister leader. If relationships happen in the Army where, you get to know those other people. You have mentors, right? You all hear about mentors. When you find your mentor, you talk to them too. So it's kind of situation specific, but yeah, I mean, you're going to have to do some digging on your own.
That's the real Army too. You're gonna have some soldiers who are just lazy. They joined to get a paycheck because they came from nothing type thing. That's what's gonna happen. But you have to understand that, and you have to figure out a way to get them to do their training. Because like Sergeant Michelle said, training is everything in the Army. If you don't want to train and you're not training hard, you need to find a different profession, because that's what we do. We train hard. So if they don't want to train, not all lieutenants are created equal, not all captains are created equal. Some of them are just lazier than others. And that's when your toxic leadership comes in the sense that if you don't have a motivated platoon, then your platoon's going to be chosen last, and it's going to be shown, and you're going to have to find a way to motivate them. You're going to have to find what makes them tick. So it comes all the way back around to knowing your soldiers. If you continue to allow those leeches to just come into your platoon and just suck out all the life from them, you're not gonna be a successful leader. You're gonna have to find what makes them tick. You're gonna have to find ways to motivate them. Working in the USDB here, they do the same thing day in and day out. So it's finding stuff that makes them, that'll motivate them, other than doing just simply corrections, doing some HUA Army training type stuff. So figure out what makes them tick, figure out why they're down, and talk to them and communicate that with them so that they will train effectively and be a productive member of the military.
So I'm going to second the motion on the captain here, but start with yourself, okay? Know yourself. I tell this to my cadets. There's four PLs in a company. So one, there's the main effort. He's the guy the commander's going to go to, guy or girl. The commander's going to go to and know the job's going to get done. The second guy is, if number one's absent, the second guy can't get the job done. Number three is like, 50-50, maybe he might do it, maybe he's not. And you have that last lieutenant, which you don't want to be, or you don't want to be number three, is he's in a case and they say break in case of emergency. You don't want to be that guy, okay? Start with yourself. It's the same in the Army. Like you just said, it's the same. You got good, you got bad, you got indifferent. Start with yourself.
Okay, let's give a round of applause to our panel. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with a few themes that I took away from today based on the discussion. By the way, great questions. Thank you for keeping it at the direct level leadership. I know sometimes you guys want to rock up there and talk about Korea, but thank you. So relationships, team building, okay, learning, gaining understanding, and learning how to assume risk and fail. Okay, you learn from failures. Communication, that came up a lot. Okay, that's kind of hand in hand with team building. Accountability just goes what Sergeant Michelle just said, accountability to yourself and to others. Okay, you're always being watched. You do everything you can to ready yourselves, to enable yourself to ready others. And then train, and then lead. That would be leaders. You guys are the future, and I think we're in good hands. Okay, so with that, we're going to end today. We're going to exit back to the auditorium. Wait, stop. Exit back to the auditorium and get on the buses, same way you came in today. Dinner tonight in the hotel, 18:30. Okay, no guest speaker tonight. Like I said, Lieutenant General Orojo will be on Wednesday. All right, so enjoy your dinner tonight. And then one other announcement. So you're still in class. You're still going through. You're going to have finals coming up and everything else. So study time. If you guys want to study, you can use that, not the Sheridan room, Shawnee room. You can use the Shawnee room, to crack your books if you need to, if you don't want to do that in your rooms. So that's available to you up to 11 o'clock every night while you're here. Any questions of me? Okay, thanks. I'll see you at the bus.